I have been a business owner for 15 years, and I have some really important lessons that I've learned over that time that I would like to deliver to my younger self. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheer Biz Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Cotton, and today we are talking about 10 pieces of advice I have for my younger self. Now, before we get into the episode, please make sure you go on over to Cheer Gym Owners on Facebook and All-Star Cheer Coaches and Owners on Facebook, and you've joined both of those groups. Check out our website. We've got a bunch of great information there as well. And if you're interested in learning from me directly in person, get signed up for one of our Cheer Biz Accelerator events. Our first event is at my gym, Oregon Dream Teams in Tigard, Oregon. You can come out and see my new facility and learn directly from me. Now, let's get into the episode. My 10 pieces of advice for my younger self. And I think I'm going to actually turn this into a longer series of episodes because I already came up with 20 pieces of advice for my younger self. But today we're only going to talk about 10. And this came up because I was thinking a lot about, what were the things that I thought or the things that I believed or the things that I wish I could have known when I was younger? And how can I tell you those things? So if you're younger in your journey, or really no matter where you're at in your journey, you can learn from the things that I once believed or once thought that I now today know to be incorrect. Things that I wish I could have changed about my mindset or my business earlier on and saved me a bunch of pain and frustration. So we're going to get into these. Some of them are going to be somewhat brutal to myself. So just buckle up. Let's have a good time. So number one is scholarships cost more than the value of the item. Now, I talked about this in the book, Charge What You're Worth, where I was at one point in my business where we had so many kids on scholarship to try to be competitively successful with our Worlds team that we were quite literally hemorrhaging money. The amount of money that we did not bring in was so substantial. It was a really, really negative point for the gym. And now some people were on scholarships and some people were on payment plans, but they weren't really up to date on their payment plans. And this is something that gets brought up a lot. Do you have scholarships? Can you scholarship my athlete? And it seems to be the higher level you go, the more and more people believe that their skills have a monetary value attached to them. And that is something that we have created in the industry. But a scholarship costs you way more than just what you are paying out for the specific items. So number one, when you have a scholarship, you're not bringing in tuition. Generally, you're just scholarshiping that because you in your head are saying, well, I'll just waive that because it doesn't cost me anything, but it does cost you something. It costs you the time, the energy, the staffing, all of those things that you are paying for. Now you may be like, well, I have other kids on the team that cover my tuition or cover my cost of the coach being there. Okay, but you've now decreased the amount of revenue that's coming into the gym by one athlete or two or 10 athletes from that team. And suddenly that team went from being a profitable team to now a negative revenue team. So it can have a significant trickle down effect. It's also going to potentially cost you loyalty of your clients, because if I'm scholarshiping an athlete, then really what I'm doing is I am saying that this athlete is worth more than your athlete. Your athlete needs to pay full price because this athlete deserves a scholarship. And especially when it is just it's like a skill-based scholarship, like I can understand it. You can explain it away, but I think it does create an animosity amongst the program. So I don't like those. So it's costing you the faith and trust of your clientele. And you may say, well, they'll never know that the athlete is on scholarship. Trust me, they know. Even if you sign contracts that it can't be disclosed, people find out, they know, kids talk, and before you know it, it's definitely gotten out there. So it's going to cost you that. It's also going to cost you the fact that for things like assessments, competition fees, and things like that, those things have to get paid, right? You have to pay competition fees. You have to pay for your uniform. You have to pay for those things and get those things for the athletes, which means that the only way to do that in a business, money has to come in from somewhere, is that you are then either taking it out of your own paycheck, which you should never do. And your paycheck is probably not big enough to scholarship more than one or two kids, but you then have to mark up the costs for everyone else. For instance, at the end of the season, when we go to Worlds or we go to the D2 Summit, we run a budget and we base our budget based off of the number of athletes on the team. So if you have an athlete on the team that is not paying towards that budget, then you have to decrease that number. So instead of it being out of 22 kids, it's now out of 21 kids or 20 kids or 19 or 18. And suddenly the number that the 18 have to pay to cover all of the expenses of the trip is significantly higher. And so it's not fair to make your other clients pay that money for that athlete. Now, you could not do that. You could absolutely say, I'm just going to budget it for 22 and I'm going to find that money somewhere else. But it's going to have a much more significant downstream effect on your costs. It costs way more than just the cost of goods, because there are other unseen costs that you aren't planning for. What about your cost of, surprise apparel? You're also not bringing in additional revenue from this person. So are they getting private lessons for free? Are they getting additional classes for free? There's a lot of concerns with scholarships. So I'm not a huge fan of them at all. I don't really do them in my gym anymore. I do set up payment arrangements with athletes. I do give athletes the opportunity to work for me in certain circumstances. So I have boys in my program, and you better believe anytime there's a physical labor project where I just need big humans to lift things, those I tell my boys. I actually just had this conversation with a young man the other day. He was like, can you scholarship me to join the program? And I said, I absolutely can't. I don't do scholarships. You're really talented. I'd love to have you here, but you need to come up with the funding to pay for certain amounts, and whatever's left over, you need to work it off. And I actually had to be really honest with the young man and say, but you weren't consistent when I gave you the opportunity to work in stunt classes before, so I can't really give you that. So I'm going to expect you to be doing fundraising, and I'm going to expect you to be doing, anytime I need help with something, you're there. You're doing the work. And so that has been a huge shift in mindset. And I wish I'd known that early on. I wish I'd had that mindset from the beginning. The reason we did a lot of scholarships is that was what the previous owner did when Tori and I worked for the gym. Most of our World's team was on some sort of a scholarship. And we thought that if we didn't offer that they wouldn't do it. And what I didn't realize is that, honestly, having someone not do a team because they didn't get a scholarship was actually doing the business a favor. Yes, competitively, it made us potentially weaker because we didn't have that double full, but ultimately it made the business much stronger, and it made it much more fair across the board. So I've even talked to gyms, I know there's gyms out there that all boys are scholarshiped. My boys pay the same price as my girls. I don't see any reason why a male should get free tuition or free cheer versus a female. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm a big believer in this. The scholarships cost way more than just the cost of goods. There's way more expenses to that, and it costs more than even just the singular season. Like, you're losing all of that profit, and you're losing more than that even. So that's number one. Number two is that you can live without that employee that you're thinking about letting go. I have held on to employees for way, way, way too long that I knew were not a good fit, that I wanted to get rid of. I've vowed after the most recent one, which I think was like 5 years ago, if I was driving home on the phone with Tori in my AirPod and complaining about a staff member and just frustrated and angry and leaving the gym angry multiple times, that I was going to make a change, whether that be putting that employee on a performance plan or letting them go. But I've held on to employees for way too long and been in the position where I was like, well, we can't lose them. Everyone will quit if we let them go. I mean, I've thought all of the things, and every single time I was wrong. You absolutely can afford to let that person go. It's your gym. It's your business. You need to do what's right for your gym. And oftentimes, if you're letting someone go, you're letting them go for very specific reasons. And I'm a believer in the slow to hire and quick to fire mindset. So We take our time hiring, we make sure they're the right people. And if they don't align with our culture, they don't align with our values, they're not on the same mission as us, then it's time to let them go. And that does not mean that I don't invest in training people or making them better or helping them become better employees. But you need to make sure that you know that you can survive without that employee, even though it may not feel like it. Number 3 is you don't have to do it all. But at the end of the day, it's your business and it does fall to you. So while it is important to know that you don't have to be at every single thing, you don't have to coach every single class, you don't have to make every single sale, you don't have to do every single thing, you also need to understand that it is your business. And if you're not willing to go the extra mile, if you're not willing to do those extra things, then it's likely that your business is going to struggle, especially early on. And where I struggled early, Dan, was I felt like I needed to be there for everything. I needed to be involved in every single thing. I needed to know that I didn't have to do all of the things. It was not required for me to do every single thing in the business for it to be successful. And that even if it wasn't fully done the way I wanted it to be done, but it got done, that actually was worthwhile. And just because I wanted it a particular way doesn't mean that's the only way that that task could be accomplished. Number 4 is asking for input from your employees is great, but at the end of the day, it's your business and you need to make the decision that drives your business forward. Now, I was just having this conversation with one of my coaching clients. We were chatting about how, kind of in older age, we've gotten a little more ornery and a little less like willing to listen to people's opinions and more just like, this is what I want done. I need it to be executed. And I think that that is not personally, I don't believe it comes from an orneriness. I think it comes from experience. Early on in my business, I spent a lot of time trying to listen to everyone's opinions all the time. I think there is a time and a place to gather opinions, but I tried to listen to everyone's opinion on every decision. I was listening to parents' opinions. I was listening to coaches, every single coach's opinion on every single thing. And that was a fool's errand. I was trying to, that then confused me. And I ended up trying to make decisions. And Tori, I say I know that I mean a lot of this is like me and Tori when I'm talking about decisions, but we were trying to always factor in everyone's opinions. And that made things very confusing because you're never going to make everyone happy. And especially when you're asking for employee opinions, they're not thinking of things from the perspective of a business owner. It is a very different perspective from being a coach to being a gym owner. You have very different priorities and you should. It's okay. It's good for your coaches to be very, very focused on delivering amazing classes, to be obsessed about delivering amazing classes or amazing teams, making your teams be really competitive. It is your job as the business owner to be worried about the numbers and the enrollment and the revenue and those things. And you have to balance each other out. But it is important to know that getting opinions is great in certain timeframes to understand where people are coming from, to factor those things in. But ultimately, it's your business and it's your time to make decisions. And I've actually decreased my drama by asking for less opinions, because oftentimes when people give their opinion, they expect that that is going to then happen, right? Well, you asked me what I wanted and then I told you and then I didn't get that thing, as opposed to not asking as much and just making your decisions and saying, this is the way things are. Number 5, this is going to be a surprise, but don't delegate too early. Oftentimes I see business owners hearing from Next Gen, hearing from other business podcasts or things like that. You got to delegate, you got to free up your time, you got to buy back your time. And people start to delegate things really, really early on in their business. And I think there is a time and a place for delegation, but oftentimes people delegate too early and too aggressively. And that then leads to problems, because you end up abdicating or you delegate before things are really systemized. So the person doesn't know how to execute on the thing and it creates problems. So there is a time and a place to delegate, and that is not necessarily early on in your business. So you've got to make sure that you have things dialed in, that you have your systems built. And quite frankly, if you aren't paying yourself yet, then oftentimes it's not time to delegate some of those roles and responsibilities because you got to work on your cash flow. You got to work on those systems. So there is money to delegate those things out. Just making sure you don't delegate too early. And I made this mistake where I tried to hire directors or put people into positions of authority way too soon. And I really didn't need to do that. We were too small. It was easily manageable by one person could have managed all the things we had going on. And we had a couple different people trying to manage it. But because I wasn't managing the managers effectively, like it just creates problems. So make sure you have your systems in place before you start looking at delegation. Delegating too early is a fool's errand. Number 6 is make sure the people you promote into positions of leadership are great leaders, not just great coaches. Now, I feel like I've talked this one to death, but I've made this mistake so many times where I have promoted people to their level of incompetence. I've promoted them. I've said, hey, you're a great tumbling coach. Now you're going to be our tumbling director. And then they come in and they don't know how to lead people and they don't know how to manage people and they do a really horrible job at it. And then I end up having to fire them from that position or fire them completely because things go so south. Most people don't love taking demotions. Now, I think you can be strategic and find lateral moves for people sometimes. Like maybe that position was not the right position, but there are other positions for that person to take. But you have to be really strategic about this. So make sure that when you're promoting people into positions of leadership, that they're great leaders. That is the most important thing. They have to be able to lead. They have to be willing to learn. They have to be willing to grow into that position. It's not about being a great coach when you're coming into a director style or manager style role. It's helpful sometimes, but it is not the number one most important thing. You've got to be a great leader. Number 7, keep clear boundaries between yourself and your clients. Now, this one I think is super, super important. And it is one of the toughest balances in this business because we are invested in our clients. We're not like a McDonald's or any sort of other transactional style service business where we care about doing a good job, but it's, at the end of the day, we wave goodbye. We develop relationships. We have a long-term relationships with our clients, years and years sometimes. Because of that, you're going to develop a relationship. You're going to know one another. So I have clients that I'd coached their athletes for 3, 4, 5 years. And now I'm a business owner and I feel very close to them. But you have to maintain a clear boundary of professionalism. And this is a really hard one to do. And it's actually becoming hard again. I feel like I did a really good job of it for a period of time. And now it's hard again because my daughter cheers in our gym. And so my daughter has friends, like all of her friends are from cheer, which means that we start to spend time with other athletes outside of the gym because she's got to be able to socialize with her friends, which means they sometimes hang out at our house or we might get together with other families. And so you can start to create, again, that really familiar relationship, but you always have to maintain those clear boundaries within the business. You've got to make sure that you have clear boundaries between this is, we're talking as business owner to client, and keep those boundaries because when you blur those lines, it creates a lot of toxicity and it may not happen right away. And you're probably listening to this and you're like, I'm friends with all of my families and that I get it. But trust me when I tell you that the people that you love the most and care about the most, I quite literally feel like every time I like really sit down and get to know someone, something happens where they make a decision that then hurts me way more than it would if they were just a client, right? They leave the gym, they quit, they then let me know their opinion on something where I'm like, ouch, that really hurts. I thought we were more friends than that. I thought you would be more understanding than that. But at the same time, that's me blurring that line, being like, okay, well, now we're friends. So now I expect some understanding when we make an error on the business side, where if I just maintain that balance of like, hey, we can be friendly. It's just like my athletes. I'm your friend. So I tell my athletes, I'm your friend. You're not my friend. You're my athlete. That makes sense, right? Like I am here for you at all times. I am your friend. I am your supporter. I am going to be your number one cheerleader. I'm not coming to you with my problems. You're not my friend. I'm not coming to hang out with you. Like that's not what we're doing. Creating that balance is very, very, very important. Number 8, your family is your family. Your clients and your coaches are not. Now, I know this blends together with the one I just talked about. We in our gym have a motto. It's family first. And lots of people use this, but we really do try and live by it. But that said, I'm very close with many of my staff. I am close. I'm air quoting for those of you not watching, close with certain clients. But at the end of the day, they are not truly my family. Like, there is a shelf life. Now, I certainly hope that some of my staff right now in my gym are going to be people who are in my life for the rest of my life. And they are a bit of the family that you choose. But most of my clients are not that. They're not going to be in my life for the rest of my life. Are we going to be Facebook friends forever? Yeah, probably. Do I care about them? Yes. But are they truly my family? No. And what is my definition of family? My definition of like your true family is the people who are going to be there to wipe your bottom when you are at old age, going to wheel you around in the care home. Those are the people who are family. Those are the people who are going to drop everything to come and take care of you when you're sick. And they're not going to have other expectations. That's what you do because that is your family. And I think it is important to remember as a business owner specifically that your coaches and your clients, they're not truly your family because there is a transactional relationship there. And because of that, it means there's always going to be another layer that takes it out of family, right? You don't pay your family to be there for you. Although some of you might feel like you do when it comes to your children. Number 9 is budget, and know your numbers and your cash flow. I ran the first 5 years of my gym really not understanding my numbers, like really not knowing what my revenue was, not knowing what my net was, not knowing what my gross was, like just kind of guessing and budgeting by feeling. And I just decided class prices by feeling and looking around and what do other people charge. And I really wasn't doing it with purpose. And you need to be incredibly diligent with these things. I wish I'd known that far earlier. I would be in a much different place right now, I think, if we had, which I'm in a great place right now, but I can't imagine where I would be now if I knew the things I knew now back then. Number 10, never feel guilty about charging what your services are worth. I just talked about pricing, but I always had a hesitance to charge more for our product. The amount of times that I said, oh, people here will never pay that. I said that so many times, and every time I was wrong. Every single time I was wrong. Don't be afraid to charge what your services are worth and to know what your services are worth. And this goes both ways. If you really offer a crummy product, you got to know it and you can't charge a premium price for it. And if you're offering a crummy product for a premium price, you better fix that product. You better fix that product. And I've been there and I talk about it in the book, how I had a situation where we had raised our prices and then I realized we were offering not a great product and we were aggressive, like violent about fixing that problem and making sure it got addressed. So we were delivering a high quality product. And honestly, that's something that you always need to be obsessively focused on is how can we deliver this product even better? How can we make this even better for our clients? So important to be constantly delivering for them. All right, everyone. So those are the 10 pieces of advice I have from now to my younger business owner self. I hope you have enjoyed them. I hope there have been some things that you've taken away and can give you some lessons to move forward in your gym. As always, thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.